Hello, welcome to Hindi reading class 6B. Today we're going to go through the hard T sounds. So, like last time, we said there was a soft T. We talked about those. And so today we're going to talk about the hard T. And the technical term for that is retroflex. And you might be able to figure out why when we show you the picture. So here is what the hard T looks like, what it's doing in your mouth. And if you see, notice there's a bump right behind your top front teeth, and the tongue is behind that bump, right behind that bump. And that is how you make the hard T in Hindi. If you notice, you can see it from the front, you'll see the underside of your tongue because your tongue is arched upward behind that bump. Duh. Right behind that bump, you'll see the underside of your tongue when you say it. Now, this is the difference between the soft T, which we discussed last time, and hard T. So one is made with the bottom of the front teeth, the top front teeth, and then the hard one, uh. If you notice, it also is different than the English T. What's different? Well, for one, you see that the angle of the tongue is different. For English T, the tongue is more parallel, not quite as far down. It doesn't touch the teeth, but the hard T is pulled further back. You can see the underside clearly, whereas for English T, you can't really see underneath that well. So this is the first hard T sound, the one with no air. So how do we know it has no air? Well, we have to hold our hand in front of our mouth, and we'll feel that we can make this hard T sound with no air. Duh, 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 duh. And then this is the hard T sound with air. You'll feel air on your hand when your hand is in front of your mouth. Tuh, 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 tuh. So the first one, duh. Second one, tuh. First one, duh. Second one, tuh. All right, so let's say them both. Number one is duh. Number two is tuh. 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 Now, number one might sound strange to you because most English speakers, when they make a T sound, especially in certain positions, there's air that goes with it. Well, the first one has no air, so it might sound a little bit more like a D to you. It's definitely harder than English T. English T is like this, tuh, right? Tuh. Now, the T number one is duh, duh. English T is tuh, and Hindi T number one is duh. Okay, now English T is tuh. English and hard T number two is tuh, tuh, tuh. There's a difference. Now let's practice hearing them. I'm going to say one and you tell me which one it is. Tuh. That's number two. Tuh. That's number two. Duh. That's number one. Duh. That's number one. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Now let's practice hearing these. Number one, I'm going to say for you, the. And then number two, the. The. That's number one. The. That's number two. The. That's number one. The. That's number two. The. That's number one. The. That's number two. The. That's number two. The. That's number two. The. That's number two. The. That's number one. 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 The. That's number two. The. That's number two. The. That's number one. The. That's number two. The. That's number one. 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 The. That's number two. The. That's number one. The. That's number two. The. That's number two. The. That's number two. The. That's number two. The. That's number one. The. That's number one. The. That's number one. The. That's number two. Ta. That's neither. That was the English T. All right. So now let's practice hearing these. Number one is ta, and number two is ta. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. 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 Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number one. Ta. That's number two. 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 Ta. That's number two. Ta. That's number two. Ta. That was English T. All right. So once again, aspiration does change the meaning of words. Quickly take a look at this. So takey is obstinate. Takey is a porter's rest area. Beat is to beat. Eat. is a back, is someone's back. Dala is to pull off, to put off. Tala is an idler. Togna is a pat or a tap. Togna is to interrogate. Tuk is a little bit. Tuk is to be beaten. Kat to cut. Kat wood or timber. Moat is a bundle. Moat is kidney bean. Lat is worn clothes. Lat is a pillar or post. Lata, a kind of food. Lata, a large club or a staff. Now, this is the interesting one, is that not only does aspiration come into play now, now we have hard and soft T, and those do change the meaning of words. For instance, ata, soft T, comes. Ata, hard T, flour. Tal, clapping. Tal, a deferring. Teen is 3. Teen is 10. Ghat is murder. Ghat is a wharf. Sat is 7. Sat is 60. Lut is a bad habit. Lut is a type of insect. Chut is contagious. Chut is freedom or departure. Top is a cannon. Top is a large hat or helmet. Tal is the surface. Tal is to be moved. Tota is a parrot. Tota is a haughty babe. Tuck is up until. Tuck is to stare. Tuk is to spit. Tuk is a fragment. Tir is fixed or calm. Tir is to be frozen. Tis, 30. Tis, shooting pain. Eek, to aim. Eek is mark or ornament. Tori is a little, and Tori is chin. Interesting, isn't it? So now you have two paths before you. I hate to threaten, but you'll find that some people need threatening. So you have two paths before you. Which one do you want? First path. If I can't hear it, then it must not be important. They'll understand anyway what I'm saying. That's too difficult. I don't want to do all of that. Tongue position is not a big deal. That's the first path. Right, and it ends up in, yeah, please speak English. Stop messing up my language. What in the world did you just say? Huh? Okay. And now, second path is the nice path, and that is I'm going to practice my tongue positions. I'm going to differentiate between soft T and hard T, and my Hindi will be easily understood, and I'm just going to keep practicing. Remember, slow, start out slow, like we talked about the Roth method. Start out slow, keep practicing until your tongue figures out do, but always start out slow first. And then the result is, oh my goodness, your Hindi is so great. I can understand you clearly. Wow, you speak great. Because, Indians have a trouble understanding foreign Hindi. But if you practice, you can do it. So, little story is I was talking to someone for the first time. I wanted to ask them if they had any grandchildren. The word for grandsons in Hindi is pote. And for some reason, like when I said it out of my mouth came pote. Kya aapke pote hain? And he should have been able to figure out what I'm trying to say, right? You have grandsons, right? Right? No, he had no idea what I was saying. He was like, "What? What?" Like I had just asked him, like something ridiculous. But he had no idea what I was trying to say. And this is the difference that tongue position can make. is that in that moment, you have no idea what goes through. You have no idea how many languages this person knows. And if you say the wrong thing, suddenly they're thinking some word in some other language, or they're like, what is wrong with you? So, for homework, practice the da sound with your hand about 1 inch from your mouth until you can consistently say it without feeling air. Then practice the ta sound with your hand about 1 inch from your mouth until you can consistently say it while feeling air. Practice alternating between da and ta. Da ta, da ta, da ta, da ta, da ta, right? One, you will feel no air. One, you will feel air. And do that with your hand over your mouth. It goes without saying that you can practice this while writing too. Each time you write, say the sound, and it will help you memorize the writing and reading as well. Practice alternating. This is a new one between the and the, and get your tongue used to having to say two different positions of T. Try to listen to it too to figure if you can figure out how the sound is different. One is hard, one is soft. That's clear from what we called it. And then practice alternating between ta and ta, the aspirated versions. Ta, ta. And then you can mix it up and practice alternating as long as you know which one you're going to say before you say it. And then now that you know that there's 4 different T sounds in Hindi, listen for the 4 different ones when you hear people and figure out which one they're saying. This makes it possible for you to find words in the dictionary. If you can differentiate the sound, you will be able to find a word. Someone's up there and is saying baat kar raha hai. Now what is baat? Is it baat, or baat? See, once you hear it, you can find it in the dictionary, which means you can understand Hindi. If you don't know this exists, now you have to look at 4 possible locations in the dictionary for this word. Think about that. If I say the word tal, did I say tal, 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 or tal? It's 4 different locations in the dictionary. So listening and learning to recognize the difference, the, ta, the, and ta, is very, very, very important because it is your key to learning Hindi. Why? Because the dictionary is your best friend. Without the dictionary, you probably would have to live in India to learn Hindi. Okay, so now we're going to go through a little bit of word practice. Same like how we did before. Break it up into syllables, kind of using the Roth method. It depends on how fast I'll go, depending on how I feel. So first syllable is a, right? And then of course, ka, we don't pronounce at the end. So this becomes one syllable. De, 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 de. Now, if your hand is not in front of your mouth, you should know that you're doing it wrong. As a learner, your hand has to be in front of your mouth and will not leave there for some years. De, because that is the only way you'll know if you're doing it right. First syllable, da, da, da. Second syllable, ba, and of course, ka has no at the end, so pa. Da, pa, 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 da, pa. Now this is an interesting word because all of these letters are letters which in English you would expect air to come out of your mouth. Now for this, you should feel absolutely very little, no air come out of your mouth. Tapak. That's how you know you're a master. Tapak. If you can get no air out of your mouth, you're mastering aspiration. First syllable. Da. 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 Second syllable. La. Dala, 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 dala. First syllable. D. No ear. D. D. Second syllable. Ah. I remember here, whenever you have a vowel with short and long, you should always ask yourself, am I saying the right one? Is it short enough? Tikka, tikka. No ear on either. Tikka, 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 tikka. First syllable, tu. No ear, long u. Tu, tu. Second syllable, da. Tu, 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 da. First syllable, to. To. Second syllable, be. No air. Do, be. 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 First syllable, poo or foo. Poo, foo, poo, foo. Aspirated. Poo, foo, da. Poo, da. Poo, da. Poo, da. Poo, da. Poo, da. No ear on the second one, ear on the first. So ear, poo, no ear. Da. Poo, da. Poo, da. Poo, da. Poo, da. Puta, 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 futa, 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 futa. First syllable, lu, 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 long u, lu. Second, da, no air. Lu, da, lu, da, lu, da, lu, da. Luta, 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 luta. First syllable, jo, no air. Second is but of course we chop it. So we get one syllable of jod, 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 no air, jod on either, jod, 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 jod. First syllable, chew, air, chew, air, chew, air, chew, air, the. And this forms one syllable again because we don't pronounce at the end. Chewed, 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 chewed. This means to depart. Chewed, 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 chewed. First syllable, pa or fa, pa. Second syllable. Da. Parta. 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 Oops, I messed up. Parta. 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 Oops, messed up. Parta. 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 First syllable, fa. Second syllable, ta and ka. No at the end. Tuck. Fa, tuck. No ear at the end. No ear right here. Fa, tuck. No ear. Fa, tuck. Second syllable should have no ear. First syllable, of course, has ear. Fa, tuck. 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 First syllable, mo. Second syllable, ah. Mo, RT, no aspiration. Da, mo, da, mo, da, mo, da, mo, da, mota, 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 mota. Remember, no aspiration. Mota, 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 mota. First syllable, la, 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 la. Second syllable, a, followed by da. Don't pronounce at the end, so that becomes one syllable. Beard. No air should be felt. La, beard. 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 First syllable, two. Should be very fast. Two. Two. Like someone punch you in the stomach. Two. No air. Two. Two. Nah. But. No air. Two. Nah. But. 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 Nah. But. Two. Nah. But. Two. Nah. But. Two. Nah. But. Two. Nah. But. Junabat, 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 no air, Junabat, Junabat, Junabat. First syllable, Lu. Second syllable, A. Last syllable, Ra. Lu, A, Ra. Lu, A, Ra. Lu, A, Ra. Lu, A, Ra. Lutera, 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 Lutera. Lutera, 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 Lutera. Okay. First syllable. Bha. Ear. Ear. Half the full ear. Bha. Second syllable. Ka followed by ka. No ear. And that becomes duck. Bha. Ear. Duck. No ear. 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 Bha. Duck. 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 Bhatak, 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 bhatak. I just like that word. It sounds weird. Bhatak, bhatak. First, te. Second, ka. No ear, no ear. Third, na. Te, 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 te. Ka, 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 na. Te, ka, na. Te, ka, na. Te, ka, na. Te, ka, na. Tigana. Remember, no air. Tigana. 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 If it sounds funny to you, then you'll have to get over your reliance on aspiration for identifying consonants because, unlike English, there is no air in either the or ka. Tikana, 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 tikana. Okay. First, T, T, air. Now we get to aspirate. Hard T, air. T, T, followed by the, no air. So it becomes one syllable with air followed by no air. T. It's like musical instruments. Air, no air. T. 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 First syllable. E. No air. E. 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 Second, ta with air. So it becomes one syllable with no air followed by air. Eat, 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 beat, 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 beat. First syllable, two, air, two, two, followed by ta, two, 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 ta. I should warn you that this is one of the pronunciation exceptions in Hindi, but we're not going to talk about that because it doesn't matter to you. Pronounce it this way and you'll be just fine. Juta, 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 juta. I'm out of breath. Juta, 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 juta. Next, ju, no air. Ju, followed by ta, air. Can you imagine that these have two different meanings? Juta, juta. Interesting, isn't it? Juta, juta. This means liar. This means defiled, like food, backwash, and such. Juta, 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 juta. No air, ju, air, ta. No air, ju, air, ta. Ju, ta, 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 ju, ta. Brr. Me, me, tea, meaty, 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 meaty. Meaty, 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 meaty. That has nothing to do with meat, by the way. Ba, ba, no air. Ba, no air, followed by ta, with air, and ending with ga, no air. Oh my goodness, it's like a balance. Standing with no air, middle with air, end with no air. Ba, ta, ba. Well, if you have problems with this, how might we tackle this? So, first, ba, no air. Second, ta, and then end with ga, no air. Ba, ta, 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 ba, ta. First, T. T. Short E, aspirated. Second, ba, no aspiration. Third, na. T, ta, 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 na. Tikana. 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 First syllable, ba, 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 ba. Second, ta, ta, ta. Third, ni, ba, ta, 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 ni, Patani, 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 Pa, no air, ta, air, ni, Patani, 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 Patani. Okay, I think that's enough for today. You get the hint, you get the clue, and so thank you very much.